Hello and good morning. I hope you all are fine and doing well at your homes. So today I'm going to talk about formalism as a literary theory. In the previous clip, I talked about the very beginning of formalism, how it came into entity, how it is as old as literary criticism in itself. Fine. So today I'm going to talk about formalism as a theory. See, formalism is a literary theory and it was spearheaded by two main bodies, Russian formalism and new criticism. So the first thing is that, it's a literary theory and it has been spearheaded by two main bodies, Russian formalism and new criticism. It basically focused on understanding a literary text through the text itself. So it means it posed a great shift from the traditional approaches. Fine. So it is somehow different from the traditional approaches where, the biography of the author is considered and where, socio-political conditions are to be taken into consideration and historical milieu is also analyzed. Fine. But it analyzes the text through the text itself. And that's why, it posed a great shift from the traditional approaches. Fine. So let us talk about both the bodies one by one. So the first one is Russian formalism. Fine. See, Russian formalism, it emerged from the meetings, discussions, and publications of the Opoges and the Moscow Linguistic Circle. Now, what is Opoges? It is basically a society for the study of poetic language. And it was based on St. Petersburg and it came into entity in 1914 and it dissolved in 1923. And its nucleus, it was formed by Victor Slavsky and Boris Eichenbaum. I mean, there were so many figures, but these are the two main figures I have just, mentioned. Then the Moscow Linguistic Circle, it came to life in 1915. And you know that later it was known as the Prague Linguistic Circle when it was suppressed by the Soviet Union in 1930. And you know that the best known member of the Prague Linguistic Circle is Roman Jakobson. Fine. Now try to understand, this Russian school of formalism. It assumes that literature is a linguistic phenomenon. Literature is a linguistic phenomenon, right? That's why, the Russian formalists, they try to investigate how language works in literature and how literary texts and literary traditions function as a system. So the first thing is that, this school assumes that, literature is a linguistic phenomenon. Fine. And that's why they try to investigate how language works in literature and how literary texts and literary traditions function as a system. Now this process is called Poetics by Roman Jakobson. Now what is Poetics? It is basically an answer to the question what turns the day-to-day language into literary language. I hope you know what is the difference between day-to-day language and literary language. See, the medium in both the cases is language, be it the day-to-day conversation or be it a literary discussion. Fine. So in both the cases, language is the medium. But what is the difference between day-to-day language and literary language? So earlier also, so many critics tried to find out this difference between the day-to-day language and literary language. And one distinction has been given by J.L. Austin. And he gives it with the help of a statement. I'm just reading the statement, and this is, I hereby pronounce you man and wife. Now, you know, this statement is spoken in a church by a father at the time of a marriage ceremony in Christianity. Now, what do you feel? Do you feel that this statement has any literary value? See, the answer is no. This statement that does not have any literary value. You know, it has only religious value. Getting my point? It has only traditional value. Why? Because this is a tradition in Christianity that at the time of marriage, you know, this statement is spoken by your father in a church. So this statement, I mean, is spoken in a marriage ceremony. It assumes a religious value with no literariness. Fine. But when the same statement occurs in a literary composition, say for example, if it occurs in any play or any short story or in any novel, so there it would assume literary value. Why? Because there this statement would play a decisive role in the development of plot, characters, or you know, themes of that particular work. Is that clear? So, when this statement is spoken in a church, at that time it has no literary value. But when the same statement takes place in any literary work, or I mean in any novel or play, there it assumes a kind of literary value. So it simply means that literary language is language plus. So the language of day-to-day conversation is, you know, simple language, but literary language is language plus. So what is this plus? So this plus is, you know, literariness. Or you just can say that this plus factor adds literariness to language. I hope the difference between day-to-day language and literary language is clear to you people. Getting my point? Then if you try to have a look at you know, this school, I mean the Russian school of formalism, you'll find that some people like Roman Jacobson and Victor Slavsky, they have given some seminal ideas. Say for example, Roman Jacobson says that literature is possessed of certain elements and linguistic characteristics. Getting my point? Jacobson says that literature is possessed of certain elements and linguistic characteristics. And these elements and linguistic characteristics, they give a kind of specificity to literature. Right? And Russian formalists, they basically try to isolate this specificity. And they call it, you know, literariness or literature nost. They call it literariness or literature nost. Right. Then Victor Slavsky, he tries to point out some differences between poetic language and practical language. So poetic language is different and practical language is different. So according to Slavsky, you know, poetic language is non-casual and purposeful. It is non-casual, at the same time it has a purpose, right? On the other hand, you know, practical language, this is casual verbal structure which is employed in day-to-day language or which is employed in, you know, everyday language. Getting my point? Then, you know, Roman Jacobson, he says that, I'm talking about poeticity. What is this poeticity? Or what is this literariness? So Roman Jacobson says that poeticity is like oil in cooking. Now try to understand, this is a very common example which you all can experience. So Jacobson says that poeticity is like oil in cooking. See, you cannot have this oil on its own. But when it is used with other food, it is more than a mere addition. Getting my point? So let me simplify it. When you add some oil to vegetable, the vegetable becomes very tasty. I mean, it gives a kind of taste. And food without oil, I mean, this is tasteless. So we can say that common language. So this is like food without oil, and literary language, that is food with oil. Getting my point? So when you cook any vegetable, if it is without oil, then the taste is very different. It is somehow tasteless. But when you add oil in it, it becomes very, very tasty. So common language is, you can say, it is like food without oil, and literary language is food with oil. Getting my point? So you cannot have it, I mean, the oil on its own, but when it is used with other food, it is more than a mere addition, right? So you can say that it is literariness that adds meaning to language. It is literariness that adds meaning to language. Fine. It means, once again, uh, literary language is language plus. So common language is simple language, and literary language is language plus. So this plus is, which gives something extraordinary to language, or it may be literariness, right? And you know very well that ordinary language, it basically communicates a message or information. I mean, it communicates a message or any information by referring to an external world outside of language. But on the other hand, literary language is self-focused. Fine, it is self-focused, and its main function is to draw attention to its own formal features. I hope you are getting the point. I'm just trying to simplify each and everything. Fine. Then, one thing that is very crucial for the Russian school of formalism, that is the process of defamiliarization. Defamiliarization, and it is known as Ostrenany in the Russian language. Ostrenany in the Russian language, right? So the question is, I mean, this is the idea in the Russian school of formalism. What is that? What makes a text literary? What makes a text literary? So it has been a major concern for the Russian formalists. Fine. And what differentiates or what distinguishes literature from a news article or a travel book? So these have been some, major concerns for, you know, the Russian formalists, right? So here we can talk about the process of defamiliarization or the concept of defamiliarization, right? Now, what is that? Try to understand. I'll try to simplify it. See, according to Victor Slavsky, art defamiliarizes things that have become habitual or automatic. Try to understand again. He says that art defamiliarizes things that have become habitual or automatic. Means it makes something known strange, or it turns something known into strange. It defamiliarizes things that have become habitual or automatic. Now let us try to understand it with the help of some common examples in our day-to-day life. See, I'm talking about the act of walking, and then we can compare it with the act of dancing, right? So, walking is a daily activity, fine. And when you remain inside your home, or when you are working in your kitchen, or whenever you are doing anything inside your home, so we keep moving from one place to another place. I mean, we keep walking from one place to another place. Now, do you feel that when you do your household works and when you keep moving from one place to another place, so do you feel that you remain conscious of the fact that now you are walking? I feel no. Because this walking, it comes to you automatically, it comes to you spontaneously, and whenever you walk inside your home, you are not aware of this activity. Getting my point? So walking is a kind of, it has become a kind of automatic activity to all of us, and we can say that we have stopped it to be aware of it. Fine. Now let us talk about uh, you know dancing. So what happens when we dance? So when we start dancing, you know, we become conscious of our bodily movements. We become conscious of some gestures on our face. And we feel that our bodily movements and our bodily gestures should not look vulgar to others. So when we walk, we do not remain conscious of this walking. But when we start dancing, suddenly we become conscious of this activity. We become conscious of our bodily movements, and we become conscious of some gestures on our face. Getting my point? So when we start dancing, you know we perceive a kind of new sensation. Now, what is the difference between a dance and a walk? A dance is also a walk, but it is felt. Try to understand. A dance is also a walk, but it is felt. Means when we walk, we do not feel, because this is a kind of activity which has become habitual, which has become automatic to us, and we have become habitual of it. So I mean, we keep walking without becoming aware of it, or without being conscious of it. Getting my point? And when we start dancing, suddenly we become aware of each and everything, right? So a dance is a walk which is felt. In the same way, everyday use of language is something you know, that is something natural or unconscious. Everyday use of language is something that is natural or unconscious. So when we make conversation in our family, we do not remain aware of the words we speak. Is that clear? So, language in poetry is more or less the same language we know. Getting my point? When we use language in poetry, this time, this language is more or less the same language we know. But this time, we have become more aware of its presence. It means it is a new sensation to be felt. It is a new sensation to be felt. As dancing is a new sensation to be felt. In the same way, the language that we use in poetry, so again it is a new sensation to be felt. So day-to-day language and literary language. Day-to-day language is the language which comes spontaneously to us, or for which we have become habitual. So when we use literary language, we become conscious of its use. Getting my point? When we walk, we do not remain conscious of this activity, but when we start dancing, suddenly we become conscious of this activity. Is that clear? In the same way, language in poetry is more or less the same language we know we use in our day-to-day conversation, but this time we have become more aware of its presence. So, What is defamiliarization? This is, we can say that everyday language is made strange. Everyday language is made strange in poetry. So art defamiliarizes things, means it turns the familiar things into strange. So Victor Slavsky says that everyday language is made strange in poetry. So this is the process of defamiliarization. Fine, I think this is enough for you today. And in the next clip, I'll be talking about certain devices which, poetry makes use of. I mean, these are some literary devices like hyperbole, like parallelism, like repetition, iambic pentameter, and we have some more devices like fabula and suse, and then we have some fallacies like emotional fallacy and intentional fallacy. So I'll be talking about all these devices which are used in poetry and which have been talked about by the Russian school of formalism. So with this I'll be coming in the next clip. I hope something is clear to you people. So if you have any problem, please let me know, and thank you. Good day.